I'm titling this A Sailor's Stories on his 100th birthday. They say old soldiers never die, but simply fade away. Old sailors don't even fade away. Salt keeps their memories fresh as kippers. And to help me remember, I'm further blessed by this beautiful calligraphy, a gift to me which Renee had made. It's of Psalm 107, verse 23. They that go down to the sea in ships, that do their work in great waters, these see the ways of the Lord and his wonders in the deep. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean sailors are more spiritual than landlubbers. It's that the ocean's powers can strike a seafarer so unexpectedly, so uncontrollably, in so many ways, that a sailor can be forced to face facts about himself and about the world, about God. When Renee gave it me, we'd been in love since she was 15, married since she was 19. I'd been a ship's captain, a college president. We were happily retired with 5 children, 10 grands, 14 greats, all wonderful. And though God has favored me with 100 years of life and a loving caregiver daughter, I still grieve deeply. But about this reminder Renee gave me of sailors seeing the ways of the Lord. Once upon a time, I was the young and bumptious navigator of a minesweeper. World War II was over, but one night, when heavy fog had forced us to stay in harbor, we answered an SOS from a sinking tanker. It was my job to find her urgently. Many of her crew were injured and needed hospital care. I found her, and we took everyone off fast and carried the injured below. One sailor was so badly hurt they dared not tilt him down a ladder, so they put him in my tiny chart room between my feet. So I had to straddle him, one leg either side. He looked my age, 20-ish. So what with him groaning and the captain on the bridge snarling through the loudspeaker, my bumptiousness got truly flustered. And this enlisted man under my feet was seeping blood, making the deck slippery. His head was badly injured, and he could hardly breathe. But he could still just drag a breath and try to tell me about his hurts, about his shipmates, his dad, his sisters. I was too busy, too irritated to answer. Every so often I had to put down my instruments to wipe clots from his mouth with my handkerchief. It soon ran red. So did the chart. It was hard finding boy after boy in the dark fog. I just wished he'd shut up. Perhaps it may have dawned on me deep down that he was afraid he was going to die and wanted someone to be friendly to him. But if I did suspect it, I ignored it. 2 miles from harbor, he asked me for a cigarette, but I smoked a pipe. His bruised face looked frightened, and he died. I navigated the last 2 miles with my eyes full. For years I've been ashamed. He was my brother, and I denied him. For months I could imagine his frightened face looking up at me, and my shame would flood back. Months, it never really goes away. I mentioned we were a minesweeper, but there came a time when active mines got scarce and we'd do odd jobs. Once we were sent to check a navigation buoy reported off station. The captain was home sick, so I was in charge, age 22, and knew everything. We loaded a diver and his stuff, sailed off, found the buoy, and lowered him and 2 sailors in the ship's boat. Down he went, the sailors pumping him air. I soon satisfied myself about the surface position of the boy, but he came up saying the moorings were suspect. Replacing them was a huge task, so I thought I'd better check them myself. Talk about conceit. I'd never been on the bottom of the sea, but there was a spare diving suit in the boat, so let's go. You've never put on deep sea gear, not scuba stuff, but the huge helmet, bulbous rubbery suit, lead-weighted boots. Took him a while to stuff me into it all. Then I wriggled awkwardly to the side of the boat and out onto the ladder. The thick glass distorted everything, especially the diver's eye when he put it to my window and winked. Guessing I'd never been deep before, he started giving me tips on the scratchy intercom, but I was busy trying to be casual. He put a rope in my hand. Hang on to the lifeline. If you need me, shout. No problem, I lied, and felt for the rung below. The water pressed the suit against my legs, stomach, chest. Then bubbles swirled level with my eyes, and I was out of rungs. I took a deep breath, totally unnecessary, and let go of the ladder. The sea closed over me, dirty grey. When the tide runs swift off that coast, the muck of the bottom swirls up, and that darkness shook me. So did the noise, loud hissings and bubblings from who knows what. I couldn't make out what the diver was saying. And as I descended, I felt myself rotating, a long, slow spiral down through the black noise, till I felt my boots squish into the ooze on the bottom of the sea. I clung to that rope. It was hard to keep my balance, and with the tide thrusting at my back, I felt if I lifted one boot, I'd be pushed over into the sludge. Call the diver. The spiraling had disoriented me. Which way were the anchors? Call the diver. But the crew would snigger that I had chickened, first time deep. I'd stick it out a while and then go up. So I clung to the rope, struggled to get upright. Couldn't see or hear the diver. Talk about scared. And suddenly a fierce thrust sent me stumbling forward, flailing with both arms to keep upright. Both arms. I'd let go the lifeline, grabbed in the dark but at a shadow. It was gone. I couldn't stop falling forward and slowly went face down in the mud. Would my air supply foul? The more I struggled, the more the mud sucked me down, it seemed to. Oh God. Then I felt a hand on my back. The diver had come down. He must have been through this. He grabbed my shoulders, lifted, helped me to my feet. I managed to turn and held on to him. He showed me how to stand. The confusion began clearing, and gradually he let me go, showed me where the lifeline was, and I took it, trying to control myself. He led me through the muck to the moorings, and I saw them, shackles buried and tangled. Before long he had me working down there, sort of, freeing the shackles, doing what I was supposed to do. Back then, I wasn't what you'd call a man of faith. My folks believed and shared it with me. I'd pray, go to church, but mine was surface stuff. Now, though, it came home. It really came home. Here's a memory you may enjoy. A couple of years after VJ Day, the Allies planned a more solid thank you to the troops in the form of a flame of freedom burning eternally at Arnhem in the Netherlands, where British paratroops had landed and many died. Here's how it would go. On England's coast at South Sea, near General Eisenhower's D-Day headquarters, thousands would take part. Field Marshal Montgomery would light an Olympic-type flame. A Royal Navy ship would carry it to Normandy. Men of the French resistance would cycle it to Belgium. Belgian underground fighters would run with it to the Netherlands, and Dutch guerrillas would carry it to Arnhem, where the flame would burn forever, reminding people why the war was fought and how hard it was won. The ship that would carry it across was ours, chosen because we were tiddly, smart, jaunty, trim. Our captain brought to the task a new uniform and high school French, which would help when we got to France. To prepare, the Navy gave us 7 days and a truckload of soap and brass polish and paint. And at the appointed time, tiddly from stem to stern, we arrived at South Sea Pier. Most of the remaining Allied armies seemed ranked there. Bands played, flags of all the Allied nations waved, out-of-school children and their parents cheered, ships tooted, Spitfires soared, newsreel cameras on a rickety tower took it all in. It was superb. Monty came to the mic and cleared his throat. The cacophony froze. A huge paratroop sergeant and 2 equally large escorts marched to Monty with an unlit magnesium torch. His voice now boomed words of gratitude and memory and meaning of the brave men who crossed this sea and dared, and many died. And he acknowledged the privilege that was now his to kindle this eternal flame of freedom. He paused. The sergeant ramrodded the unlit flame to him, and he lit it. The 3 sergeants turned magnificently and thumped down the pier toward our ship, torch held high, followed by Monty and the VIPs. The plan required the sergeant to march across the gangplank to present the flame. I suddenly wondered if our slim gangplank would bear 300 pounds of pounding sergeant, but it simply bounced him, and he, even in midair, kept marching immaculately, landing surprised but safe before our skipper. In proper paratroop fashion, he now ramrodded the torch forward. Zat! But this time it was lit, and someone should have mentioned, at least to the skipper, that a paratroop gesture with a lit magnesium torch sprays burning bits in the direction the gesture is aimed, in this case at the skipper, who caught fire. New hat, lapels, knees, the lot. Under our feet were 2,000 gallons of high octane. We were that daft British invention, a petrol-driven minesweeper. On the funnel in fierce red paint was the warning, "No smoking abaft the funnel." The skipper was smoking well abaft it. Quick-thinking sailors soon patted him down, but he was still smouldering, so they hustled him down to the wardroom. I ordered the coxswain to carry the flame of freedom to the bridge, far from the fuel, but bravely visible to the cheering crowds. And as fast as we could, we cast off and headed out to sea. Bands played, crowds cheered, but the captain did not reappear. He was perhaps healing himself with gin, so I was in charge. With England safely astern, I had the flame's incendiary tendencies curbed by putting it in a hurricane lamp and hung on the mast. Every 2 hours, I take it into the wheelhouse, treat the flame to a fresh container of fuel, and bear it back to the mast, carefully, respectfully. And night fell. It began to get rough, then very rough. Small ships like minesweepers bounce fiercely. We were used to it, but even so, we could on occasion be tricked. This, sadly, was such an occasion. At 2 a.m., it was time to refuel the lamp. The sea was fighting mad, so I bore the lamp tenderly into the wheelhouse and put it on the table beside the helmsman. He was one of our best sailors, but even he was hanging on. I started my delicate task. Things went well, till bang, the bow hit a huge wave, the wheel tossed the helmsman at me, and the flame went, wherever flames go when they go out, even eternal ones. Being a pipe smoker, I had matches and relit the flame of freedom. I looked at the helmsman. He looked at me. We nodded. I'm not sure what either one of us meant, but as we steered for France, we both minded our own business. At dawn, Ouistreham hove in sight. It's where 3 French soldiers had landed on D-Day. The captain had decided to stay below. He really was burned. We put the flame back on a fresh torch, and most of us shaped up to march ashore. Our reception was just as splendid as our farewell had been. Sashed ambassadors, bemedaled brass, families galore, bands welcoming us with vaguely nautical marches, I bearing the flame. The mayor of Ouistreham would receive it, but first came his speech on behalf of Europe. How proud that I, humble Frenchman, now receive into these very figures. By chance, I caught the eye of the coxswain and quickly looked away. These flame kindled yesterday by the warrior hero of Europe. The bulging eyes of the coxswain cried silently, "Not this one, Monsieur. This was lit at 4 bells of the middle watch by Sub-Lieutenant Webb. Mine burning their urgent command, never a word, coxswain." And his struggling to reply, "I'll try, sir, but it's hard, it's bloomin' hard." I really don't mean to make light of this event, but surely it calls for a smile or two. But no, it has to do with brave men's honoring, and I deeply regret my stupid clumsiness. I wish with all my heart I had been worthy of the meaning and importance of it. But years later, Renee and I made a pilgrimage to Arnhem so I could stand where the paratroopers had fought and express my sorrow. But we found no flame burning, nor even a place for a flame. Apparently, it had gone out in the first hour ashore. So the people of Arnhem remember the sacrifices of those dead soldiers in a different way. They keep the soldiers' graves beautifully tended. And we saw a wedding couple come and put her bouquet on a soldier's grave. They told us they didn't remember a flame, but they did know that family members often visited the graves of their British dead. Indeed, they shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. The flame of freedom burns wherever it's hallowed. At this moment, somewhere, courageous men and women are risking everything to protect us and our values. Revere those who guard them, pray for their safety, and as we can, keep those beloved values aflame in our hearts and in our actions.